Has started. The only announcement I have is that there will be no class next week because I will not be available. Any other announcements? No.
Without Claire, we are nothing.
Oh wow, that's impressive. With that, let's move on to some Coelioxys males.
All right. So we'll continue where we left off. We just got an introduction to the general characteristics of Coelioxys males, and we'll just start going through species and looking at characters at the same time. Up on deck is... Wait a minute. I was trying to share, but I clicked off the mic. Is Coelioxys coturnix. And let me make sure I share properly. Why is it? There we go. Okay, so here, Dave Smith, I think it was Dave Smith, last time suggested, you know what, your pictures are better than the stuff we can see on the microscope. So we'll use pictures when we have them, because he's absolutely right. And then we will switch to the microscope when we need to see something specific. Thank you, Dave. All right, so the thing about coturnix is that it is a introduced species, the only introduced Coelioxys, and it is a nest parasite of, at minimum, Megachile rotundata, but could also be of the Consina group and also Apicalis. We don't know. It is still spreading. It's largely in the mid-Atlantic states, and first found in Maryland, first record in the 2000s, I think, by John Asher. And then I think we found an earlier one along the Anacostia. So it hangs out where Megachile rotundata hangs out and should be looked for anywhere that Megachile rotundata exists. And because it can easily probably jump like Megachile rotundata, and its ilk does via transport of stems and holes in things that have nests. So the main, first of all, a kind of primary identification is it is smaller than all the other Coelioxys because it is a nest parasite of the smallest group of Megachile, which are all introduced, by the way. And so you're looking at a tiny bee about the size of Megachile rotundata. You're also looking at something that presents very white. So it's a different kind of Coelioxys in a lot of ways. So if you look at this picture, Claire, tell me if we can't see that. What we're looking at...
It's looking good.
Okay, and I can't really have a pointer. I can only have the magnifying glass here. Oh, let me change the size. Maybe that will help. Of the mouse. Oops. Darn it. Where did that go? Let me try that again. Change mouse pointer size. Oh, here we go. Okay, that now is our bigger size, and we're back here. Okay, well, at least we can use the magnification glass to point, and moves the picture around too at the same time. So these bright white scales are very noticeable and very different from the other species. They have, instead of the scale-like hair, they're presenting basically bands of hair. So more like the hairs that you see here, these scales are unique. Additionally, the rear end in the males, which is what we're looking at today, is very pokey and pointy. So you can see here, we can see this in the microscope too. Those tips are almost spine-like, and they're pitted all the way out to the end. If we look at a couple other pictures here that we have, you can see that this white shows up quite a bit on the sides, even more so than on top. So it presents as a very white-looking Coelioxys too, in addition to being very small. Here's the female. I'll just talk about the female since we didn't have these pictures available last time. Lots of red on a lot of the specimens. Interesting because it probably was only introduced by one species, but it shows up red in a bunch of different specimens that we've seen so far. So everyone should expect to see this species at some point, and it'll be interesting to watch the progression of specimens that come in. So those are the primary characters. Let's switch to the microscope, and you can see, because we almost always look at the, if anyone wants a close-up of anything that we are talking about on the pictures, we can do that. But I'm going to show the underside. Again, the underside, we almost never take pictures of the underside, but the underside is where a lot of action is in comparisons that you would make between more than one species thing that you have. Like, am I looking at the same species or not? A lot of times it's useful to look on the underside, and often you will find characters that aren't necessarily in the guides, but the presentation is different, and you'd be like, oh, clearly these are different. Here, there's, the architecture of this rim, which is, I think, S5 and S6, often is quite different. I'm going to try and magnify this a little bit more. And you can see it doesn't show super well under the microscope. But for example, this, which is S6, I believe, you can see there's two rims. There's this double rim thing going on. And the sclerotized or darker rim, the lower one, see, this one has a notch out of it. And then the upper one is slightly disguised by some gook there that's more amber and transparent. So I can't tell you whether the amber rim has a notch out or not, but the shape, concave, convex, notched, not notched, sometimes there's little spines on the sides, is a useful feature. Those are in the guides. And a lot of times they're visible because Coelioxys tend to lay their bodies out flat instead of like Osmia, same family, likes to curl things up. So here we're looking from the underside at, you see these spine-like spines, I guess they might be spines, at the end of T7 on the species. So all the Coelioxys have this. They look different. They're very difficult to describe, so that independent of a picture or comparative information, you can tell them apart. But again, another place to look if you have more than one and you're comparing, as should be the case, your specimen to known specimens and wondering whether you keyed it out correctly. Okay, or you have a new species. So that's coturnix, magical little thing, invasive species, more of which is going to be coming our way. So we'll jump now to Germana. So Germana is a species that is a nest parasite of petulans. And in keeping with our new photography point of view, let's see if I can find a specimen of that. And you can do this too. I'm just going on to Flickr. This is our repository, and we slowly increment that. So we're looking for Germana. Oops. You can search our directory. It's set up to do that now automatically. And look at that. We have a full, and we keep the Eastern, maybe all North American, but at least Eastern specimens in their own little folder. So here's a male. So good for us. We have something to look at. You can see, we'll do a magnification thing here. You can see that the back end on this one is very different from what we were looking at in coturnix. You can see that there are hairs, and we can do one more magnification, hairs in these levels that maybe have sub branches, but they're nowhere this like the scale-like ones we saw in coturnix. If we come up here, we're looking at, we don't see the backside, but we're looking at scutum, scutellum, and there's a central ridge. This is the giveaway for the species, this central ridge down the middle of the scutellum, and there's a tiny point. It's a little bit hard to see there that's sticking out from the backside. And here is the edge of the scutellum, and it has a vertical face, and that's where you would be looking for these patches, which you can kind of see here sticking out of white hairs and whether they're or not. So this is so straightforward because of that central ridge on that scutellum that we really don't need a lot more investigation of the species in terms of ID. Let's make sure though. So, but if you have a question, holler out now. I have the I do have a specimen on deck here. And it is there. Also, pictures are so much better in their view, but we can look at a diversity of things this way. But you can see even from this elevation, the central feed reef, the feed supply here, the refresh rate. Still have not figured out if it's changed or I just didn't notice it before. Pretty slow.
It's definitely slower than it used to be.
Is it? Yeah, I think it is. I'm somewhere there's a setting. So here again, we can see the central spine, this sort of defining character of this. These are quite long spines too. And if we turn this specimen over, we can take a look at what's going on the underside of it. This parasite of petulans. Just have to be patient as I move this thing with the current feed updating. So here, we don't need it necessarily, but here's, I'm going to say that's S, it says S5. I think it's S5 and S6 that have these things, but take a look here. We'll go up a couple more notches. And these are the reason that these sternites can be very useful. Look how different this is. There's two small spines, I'll call them, on either side of a central notch in the sclerotized area. You really can't see much of the translucent rim because of the hair here, but there is some poking out, and it looks like it's not notched. And then on this one, you can see that there's even a more spectacular cutout of the segment in that particular case. So,
Sam, do you have the Discover Life page pulled up to show?
Yeah.
You have like 8 different characters possible there to show off.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to Discover Life and get out of there. And we can look at the characters of Germanus. It's German. I keep calling it Germana. That's the older pronunciation. They changed it to us because of some kind of gender conflict. Okay, so right at the beginning, S4 outline is included in 2 of the many sections. One, upper dark rim deeply notched, lower amber colored rim, which we did not see very well, evenly convex. So we did see that notch in it. Now, and the other one, double rimmed. So the upper dark rim deeply notched in the center, again, saw that pretty easily. Angles on either side of the notch are produced into sharp points. that are fused to the upper surface. So we saw that 2, which itself is evenly convex. In theory, we would only need this one because that's pretty obvious, but a lot of times we overscore things because the idea is to get to the answer, not to be absolutist about a character. So that would be another lovely picture too to add in addition to this this diagram. So you can see the points that we were looking at there. But sometimes, you know, I think the reason that we look at something like this is that the points are obscured or can't be seen, but you can see the notch. And why not? Why not continue on and identify it with the super great character of the scutellum? So one of the philosophies is that don't be very equivocal about and precise about the scorings in characters if you have a super character somewhere that just defines the species, because you don't want people to miss the species simply because you were too conservative in your scoring and people mistook a character that wasn't that important as being present when you said it was absent, and therefore the species disappeared from the guide. That's the problem, and the benefit of these kinds of guides is you have many, many different kinds of options, but that means you also have to score them all and for every species or deal with, and it deals with ambiguity more upfront. Okay, so Germana, I think we have covered its primary features here, or Germanus, I should say. And that went away. We did porterae last time, and we have immaculata. Is this a male? I believe it is. So here's immaculata. This is an uncommon species, and it's probably immaculatus now, by the way. So let's take a look and see what we have picture-wise for this one. Fun that we get to use pictures now. I don't know if I've updated the names in the picture guides. I have not. There it is. Okay, what have we here? That's our placeholder rock. It should have been gone by now. And this is looks like a male too. So let's bring this up, and let's also, so if we in general want to, oops, here we go. Take a look at the tail and take a look at the architecture here. This is a male, but the spine system quite different looking, and you can also get an impression of an awful lot of pitting within the system. Recall that in a lot of the species on T2, here's T1 right through here is the edge. This is T2. There are little tiny fovea, which I do not see in the picture. Let's see now what the guide tells us in terms of the ID. That's something that I have to refresh on too, because I just don't see this species that much. So if we go here again and go to menu, characters, immaculatus, and I don't know what the hosts are for immaculatus. I'm not sure that's known. So here we have S4, so this is the underside, and we either have, they're both characters that are possible. Looks like they both could be shallowly notched in the center, or the upper dark one notched and the other convex. So we could take a look at that. When we look at T2, T3, transverse grooves, it's both shown as completely across in both segments or widely interrupted on one or both, so not particularly great. T2 presents perhaps as a pit-like groove or depression. So those are those little different kinds of pits and things. and it doesn't have one. It's not scored for having any, and we saw that. If we look back at the, at the picture here, oh, that's this one. We can go to T2 area, and there's nothing here. Here are the central grooves there, and then the T3 groove is there, and you could see that you might score that for being all the way across or not. And in this case, it's scored for both because it's a little bit ambiguous, and you see that to the, I can't remember now, what was it, to the front or to the back of that groove over in this area would be a pit if there were one to be had, and there is not at this point. So let's go to here, immaculatus. So here's porterae versus immaculatus, and when we're looking at the pronodal lobes, it says immaculatus produced into simple dark colored low ridge that is neither especially thin or translucent. So porterae, if you remember from last time, has the pronodal collar here and pronodal lobe area, so it runs together with that's sticking up and creating a ridge. Immaculatus does not. We'll look at the picture again. And, oh, that's right. I have to go here. And so in this area, again, I'm not going to use a microscope because the visual is less, is better here. And you also, it's hard to see something that's not there, right? So you're not seeing any ridge sticking up above these hairs. You're also not seeing the infamous donut that's on top of porterae and a couple other species. So going back to the guide here, we can look at the recessed area. What do we call it? The shallow depression, and whether there's hair or not. And it has filled with hair or presenting as a brush. So that's not a very distinctive. Some are have a lot of interesting things going on there. Those are sort of the standard ones, so it's not particularly distinctive. Sculpting, as we saw, it's a very densely and distinctly pitted specimen in general, so it's going to show that. We see that leg color is not particularly helpful, and neither of these things are particularly helpful here in terms of the axillary length. But here we see that when we look at the pronotum and the rear face of the scutellum, that there is no hair going on. And then we have no lack of ridge. So in general, this is sort of a default species, right? There's not any really noticeable feature. There's a lot of things that are just not around. So if we go back to the picture here really quickly, you can see that we do get a shot here. Here's the scutellum, right? And here's the rear face of the scutellum. You can see because we're not quite vertical. And here is the rear face of the metanotum on there too. And there's just long hair. There's none of the white, tight, repressed, oppressed hairs that you would see. Is that a little creature right there? No, it's some feature. That's interesting. Look at that. What is that going on there? It's on this side too. Fun. I don't know. We don't have time to get into it. And so we look at a couple of these other specimens. This might be the specimen that I also have. You see relatively hairy face. Nothing really new here. There's no pits on the side. And same thing, slightly different view. And so it's we're going to flip it over to get people, because it's a tricky character in general, looking at the sternites, S4 and S5, I guess is what they are, not S5 and S6. So if we go to the...
Do you want to see if you can find those little squigglies by the tegula?
The things that were like, what is that? Yeah, that would be interesting. Let's just have an adventure. my first notion was that that was some kind of parasite peeking out. To go up. So we're going to look at the sternites first, and we'll go back to the top. Okay, we're moving in the right direction. Okay, here we'll give us a little more magnification of this area. And what we're looking at is basically all the sections being slightly notched. In particular, so I believe that might be S3. There you can see a notch, and that's probably a notch. But let's move a little closer there. I'm not sure if that's the second segment or the amber rim of one of the segments. And I'm going to say it is the amber rim because it looks like an amber rim. If we difficult to see here, it's a little bit blown out, but I believe that is a notch. Let's go up a little. See if that becomes apparent. Gosh, so horrible. At this focusing thing. I'm always constantly overshooting where I want to see. Okay, so that's more in focus. What is that information? So here is the amber rim, very clear in this particular species nicely. I believe if we were to look more closely and can take the light down maybe a smidge, which we can do. That's probably a notch. We'd have to look a little bit more closely. This is not clear to me if that's S4 or S5, but let's move it to the back a little bit. And open up the magnification. And it looks messy down there. You can see how thick the spines are on T6. So you can see the bottom parts of this. Looks like maybe some genitalia. It's kind of messed up. Here's where we were looking. This must be the other part. It does look like it's notched out there. I can't really see an amber rim action going on. There's a slight possibility that I'm looking at. Nope, there's T1, 2, 3, 4. So we were looking at the right one. T5 is just a little more tricky to see. So you can see where, depending on the specimen's status, it can be hard to see some of the characters. And that's why, again, we kind of like the Discover Life thing. So if you can't see or you're not comfortable with the character, you're not necessarily stuck on it. All right, we are going for an opportunity to find some strange character. I should do full screen. Thought that was full screen. There we go. Oh, interesting. It's about the same screen size.
Yeah, that's not what we've done before.
Yeah, let me hit escape. Maybe this is why. That. I don't know, but it doesn't seem to want to go to full screen. I'll have to play with this after we leave. So we can go back here and we will go to the, so I'll add a little more light. And a little more magnification. See if we can get into the tegula area and see if there's a mysterious structure there. This looks like it's a different specimen, but there is something there. What the heck? We're going to do this at 5x now. And need to go a little bit further and not bump it. Okay, so that looks like the rear wing. And we have something going on in there. All right, we're going to take too much time doing this, but what is that? What is that thing in there? Okay, enough. So here we have a different specimen than the picture. This is a lot goopier, but if you look here again, you can see lots of pits. There's nothing on T2. This is T2. There's the ridge. There's no special pit or fovea on this. It's all just pitting. And you can see that the rear end here has a very different look, very blunt, maybe even a loss of a point or two in that system. And no, on the back side, no breast hairs. All right. So oh my gosh. And ants had invaded the open box without permission.
Did you say ants?
An ant for some reason. Okay, so this is one that has, okay, we're looking at Coelioxys modestus. I believe it was modesta before. And it has a unique feature that, at least in the eastern species, others don't have. So on T2, that's where we normally look for these little fovea. I'm going to try and find it here. Let's see, modesta. We'll get a Hylaeus or two. So, oh no, Coelioxys. And these could be males. I can't tell. It's kind of a dark screen here. Okay, yeah. Let's see what we can see. So here, again, a slightly different look to the hind end. Here's T1, T2, T3. So what we're looking for on T3, we may have to find this in the microscope. It might be there, is a fovea on T3 instead of T2. So there's nothing on T2 here, but on T3, it has a fovea, not usually listed in the literature. It's a little bit obscure, but it's the only one that has that. So I guess let's spend a second here looking at this specimen. So here, look how different the pitting pattern is here between this one, very low, and the grooves flatten out here in the middle. The pitting is quite low compared to the others. It does have bright white patterns here. It's not like coturnix, because these are not plate-like. They are feathered, but they are thicker than the others. It should be over in this area, should be the fovea. We'll have to find it. That might be it right there. Find it on the microscope. I think it has relatively little hair on the backside of the metanotum and the scutellum. And so we'll go no donut on the head. So let's go now to the microscope. Take a look and find the fovea that's distinctive. It probably keys out also, oops. So in with other features, but this one is just a nice addition to look for. But it's not like super obvious. All right, fovea. Where are you? You know what? I'm going to find it microscope first because it's relatively small. I want to make sure I get it. Okay. It was that thing that we saw on the other one, which is basically a sort of, I would call it a holy crater. So if we go back to the picture, we go back here to T3, it's this area right there. So it's recessed and there's pits in the inside of it and it's on T3. So if we go now to the microscope, move in to find the specimen. And, oops. So here's T1, T2, T3, and I think it's that area right there, but I'm going to zoom up, see if I can capture it a little bit better. Meaning a smidge more light. That is good, and this may be, make sure I'm on the right one. So T1, T2, T3, probably that right there. And yeah, this should be it. The problem is that the lighting is not great to see that from that direction. So let's add a little more light to the surface here. Yeah, maybe a little bit more. Oh, that might be too much. Is it possibly that one? All right, so I'm being unhelpful here in terms of being able to see this T3 pit crater complex. You'll have to get some specimens and take a look at them. We'll look at the characters in a second. And recall that modestus in the female had that tipped up point on, well, it just takes so long for this to recover. All right, I'm going to call it not easily visible and move on. I think we're actually also looking through a wing. Maybe that's the problem. and try one more time and just flip it to the other side and try and see it through the wing edges. Yeah, they have the feed is so slow that I am moving too quickly. There we go. It's caught up. All right. Bring the light back down to something reasonable. Abdomen. Move up some power levels. Move the magnification slowly. Oh, there we go. So T1, T2, T3. So if I have it right, it's right there. And we are not going to look anymore after this. Can't find it. We can't illuminate it well. Yeah, it's this right there. There's a couple of pits inside it. I guess it's just a difficult to show thing in this kind of lighting. All right, we'll stop. Get your own modestus specimens and take a look at it. Okay, let's go back to the specimen, but I really want to go to the identification. We're going to look at characters, and we're going to look at modestus. And we have, okay, on the male, S4 is double rimmed and notched. And doesn't, oh, I think it's mostly just dealing with S4, not S5, but you can either have interrupted or continuous troughs across the segments. Modestus T3 has a set of 2 enlarged and deepened pits that are about 3 to 4 times the size of the surrounding pits. That's what we were trying to find, halfway between the sides and the center line. Bit difficult to detect. Okay, so it's again something that you'll probably have to peer around at. Here, presence is bare or the short set of lines, not super distinctive there. So I think in general, this is another one of these species that falls in between, doesn't have any characteristics on the scutellum edge. It's got a spot of oppressed hairs on the metanotum, and it has scutellum has oppressed hairs too, so that adds to it. And again, no median ridge there. So it's going to be a pretty generic species, except for you'll end up having to look at those kinds of patterns on the side of the metanotum of the scutellum and the metanotum. It's hard to see from this angle. Let's take a look at a couple more pictures to see if we get a better shot. That is not helping. And that, oh, there's the underside. Interesting. I took a picture of that. So S4, if we look at this, this should be S1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go one bit more. It's supposed to be notched in both sections. A little bit difficult and a little bit dark. Can't see the amber rim, which would be in there on that one. Dark specimen problems. And do I have a headshot here? Oh, is this a different shot? No, that's the same one. So in here somewhere, or maybe that is that crater. And we've gone through all the pictures now. So relatively common species. So now, I don't have any males of moesta. Moesta is more of a northern species. We do have porterae males. Let's see if there's a picture of a male. And looks like there is. So if we move in and look at the pictures, and you guys tell us if we are doing a good job looking at these pictures, and we move in and double it up. Let's see if we can spot here, because I don't know offhand. There's T1, here's T2, and I am not seeing any fovea on T2, which would be in this general area. And then a slightly different configuration to the spines on the end of T7. I believe that there are no oppressed hairs on the metanotum and scutellum edge there. No particular architecture of note. Let's take a look at what the guide says here. We have a specimen, so we can look at that also. We don't want modestus, we want porterae. So when we're looking at S4, we are looking at double rimmed upper, dark rim is convex. Okay, so it doesn't have a notch. And then the amber rim is notched. So we can look for that. Continuous troughs across both segments. Oh, it says that there is a deep elongate and narrow grain of rice size obvious pit or a shallow pit internally available. I did not see that in that picture. Let's take a quick look here on this specimen with my microscope to see if it is visible. Maybe, yeah, I can see it. Let's see if we can get it to show. So it's very, the problem will be that the area that's depressed is not very deep, so it doesn't show up as a shadow easily in pictures or online. And it's filled with pits, so it looks pretty similar to the surrounding area. Let me put the specimen away. So your microscope skills will be put to a test, as will my ability to show these things. Let's go back to the pictures and see if we can see anything on here again. So it's probably, based on what I'm just looking at here, it's probably this. So you can see an area with a little bit greater density. It doesn't look like it's a pit, but it's pretty shallow. So I think in this picture, it's not showing up as a cavity, but you can see the smaller and greater density of pits there. That's what I'm seeing under the microscope too. Over on this other side, you don't really see anything. We can do a quick check and see if there's another picture that shows something. No, maybe from the side. So here's T1, T2. Not the right angle. Mostly we're seeing the sides of the sclerites. And I think that is it. It'll probably be a headshot. It's not very helpful. All right, let's see if we can find this T2 thing. And the importance of T2 is you can see that there's a group of species that look about the same in these males. And if we go to here again, so we're looking for this shallow, internally pitted type of thing. And then, oh, here's something about porterae versus other species, Octodentatus and sayi. And it's saying porterae T4 and T5 so on top have a narrow but clear unpitted medial longitudinal line. Okay, we'll look for that. The facial fovea on T2, that's what we were trying to find and will try to find, are longitudinally wide, so they're long across the breadth of the specimen and about 3 pits wide and taking about half to a little less of the long. You can see how this pit that occurs on T2 can require some looking at because it helps discriminate things when there often aren't that many other characters. Longitudinal distance between the apical takes up about half of the width between the hairband and the trough. Interior pit's very obvious. In direct comparison, the notch in the tip of the amber rim of S4 is wider and deeper and quite prominent. So we'll look for that. The abdominal pits are larger in comparison to the pits on the scutum than in moestus. Okay, so we have on deck a specimen, and it's way up on 5, so let's take it down to something reasonable. And the first thing of order will be to find our T2. And maybe the first thing of order is to get this thing in focus. I believe that is going out of focus. Yeah, we have some wing blocking going on potentially here. Good. Oh, we might be in luck. So I'm going to say target this area right there as potentially our shallow pitted area, fovea, if you will. We'll see if we can bring that into focus. Okay, you can kind of see it evolve into a pit. Oh, we have just the right amount of shadow here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here's the pit, here's the hairline, and here's the trough right there. And the idea is that it's relatively wide, it's not a slot, and it's taking up about half that space, maybe slightly less, depends on where you measure edges. Let's go in a little bit further if we can here. And we're off to one side. Let's see if I can nudge over this clay into the center of the screen. Pretty small, but I think we're getting a surprisingly good look because the shadow is just right here. So here's that pit. You can see there are pits to the interior. It's a little bit difficult to see, but they're actually denser and smaller inside that area. I'm going to try and change the focus a little bit. Oh, it might have worked. Now, how about adding some more light? See if we can get in there a little bit better. I think that's not bad. I'm kind of surprised. Okay, so there's our pit. Here's our trough. Here's the edge of the hairline. And here's T1 up here. So that's the pitting that we're looking for in this particular case and the design of that. All right, so I believe there was a vague, it's too much light, vague line, midline on, if I want to say T4 and maybe T5 and T6. So I think we can kind of see that here. See this sharper line between the reflections there. We'll go back and take a look at the
T4 and T5.
T4 and T5. Okay. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That might be there too. Let's zoom in, and I'm going to bring it up a little bit so it stays in the picture. And certainly not prominent, but bring this into picture a little bit more. On T4, I don't really see it. It looks like this is probably what they're talking about on T6, but let's change the angle here a little bit. And see if we get a different light. So I'm going to put it more or less straight down. What did it say, Claire? A vague unpitted line down T4 and T5.
Yeah, porterae, T4, T5, narrow but clear, unpitted, medial longitudinal line.
I don't really see it. Let me change the focus here. I'll do one more view. Okay, so here I think this is the line that they're talking about. Not very prominent. And maybe if we saw it better, we'd see it on T4 going through there. And it also may be one of these things where sculpturally you have to run the angle. What happens when I change the lighting here? Not a whole lot. Yep. Okay. Then what are we also looking for? We're looking for something on S4, was it, Claire? On the other side?
In direct comparison to these other species, the notch in the tip of the amber rim of S4 is wider and deeper and quite prominent. The abdominal pits are larger in comparison to the, that's the scutum. So S4 is wider and deeper.
Okay, and then I think we're running out of time here. So much. All right, so there should be S4 and or is that S4? So there's an amber rim sticking out with a notch in it. So I'm going to guess that's S4 and that's the notch in the amber rim. Does it say that S for the first part is notched or not notched, or does it not mention? Or is it just talking about the amber rim?
If I scroll up to the rim question, it says double rimmed, upper dark rim, evenly convex, lower amber color rim, shallowly notched in center.
Okay,
is what it's scored for. Yeah, so that seems.
That's a pretty good view of that here. Not now, but so here's the darker sclerotized rim, and you can see it basically is all convex. There's no notch or cutout there, but the amber rim does have a shallow notch. And I think we're at a stopping place.
We're at a great stopping place. Good job.
Yeah,
and
thanks.
I've made a note for myself for us to try to figure out this lag thing when we're in the lab together tomorrow. So
yeah, okay.
But we'll have off next week, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks, hopefully with some tech issues smoothed out.
Yeah. Any continuous AE. Okay, never mind. I'm problem solving right now. So no questions?
No, we just had somebody really like the photos, but otherwise it was a quiet chat today.
That was probably Dave Smith.
It was
the
Not, but we're good. Yep.
Not Dave Smith. Okay.
It was not Dave Smith. I'm sorry. It
All
was
right,
Mary
good.
Fell.
Yeah, but I like the use of the photos too, and so we'll try and do that more, and then use the microscope for zooming in on things that are not in the photo that we need to take a look at, and it will save time too.
We like it. Good job, team.
Okay. All right.